Of course, you don't need props to practice yoga, and that's the beauty of yoga. But props can level up your practice. They can help you deepen and take your poses to the next level. So anyone who thinks that they're cheats or the easy way out, I want to clear up that misconception. Props are fantastic, and I'm going to give you a few examples. These are things you might want to have at home if you have a home practice. Of course, a lot of these things are available in studios. So whether you regularly practice videos at home or just want to work on a few poses here and there, things I would highly recommend you have. One you probably already have is a blanket or towel. Now, of course, you can go out and you can buy that cute yoga blanket you see in a studio, but a towel works just as great, and I'll show you how you can use it. Step one is in your easy seat. You bring that under your hips, you're lifting your hips up just a little higher than your knees. So if you have tight hips, an easy seat is not easy for you. Bring your hips up just a little higher. It's probably going to make this pose a bit more accessible. That's one way to use it. Something else we don't talk about enough, and this is kind of where you level up your easy seat. When a teacher cues you to sit up nice and tall, you might not realize it, but I guarantee a lot of us do it. I know I do. You sort of press into your lower back, puff out your chest, and you feel like you're getting lift, but really you're just arcing your back. When you have a little something under your hips, you are naturally taking out that arc, and you're still getting all this wonderful length and lift, probably actually better for your spine. That's one way to use it. Same thing goes when you're taking folded positions. So a simple seated forward fold on a blanket or towel helps us hinge forward. This is one of those examples when it can help you deepen a pose while maintaining good length in your spine. Same thing with, say, bound angle. Our Baddha Konasana gives us that little bonus hinge forward, or our big straddle. Now, another way I really like to use it is it can make, say, a hero's pose that much more acceptable. This is why you don't necessarily need a block. Your blanket, your towel can be folded up nice and tight. If you can see, it's almost about the same height as my block. And I actually prefer blanket towel when I'm taking heroes. So the heroes is when you are seated on your heels, your shins. It's a great stretch for the shins and the ankles. And keep in mind that this pose, depending on your lowest part of your legs and your ankles, just might not be accessible with your body, even propped, and that's okay. But if you do find, oh, I get a great stretch here, but without a little something under, with my feet tucked underneath, it just feels like too much pressure, blanket or towel underneath your sit bones, your tailbone. That way you're putting the pressure on your prop, not your legs. Your legs just get the benefit of the stretch. There's one way to use it. Another way, prone poses, when you're lying on your belly. If you have breasts, it can sometimes not feel so good to lie on them. But if you have your blanket, your towel underneath your rib cage, I'll show you here, Sphinx, we wouldn't really be laying on our chest here, but it can be a nice little reminder to engage our core, kind of support our rib cage and our belly so that we're not overarching our lower back. Of course, you want to engage the front of your core, pull belly button to spine, or just take that big flex to support it. But again, this can be a little bonus. Or if you're in a pose like our half crocodile or our half frog, and you're lying prone with one leg in a right angle and one arm in a right angle, if you don't have that pressure on the chest, you might be more inspired to relax into the mat. And this is one of those poses where the more you relax into the posture, the more it kind of naturally deepens. Don't forget to do the other side. Come through center. So again, continuing with our wonderful blanket towel, if your wrists give you grief, whether you're in a tabletop position, it can help you lift up your wrist so you're not putting too much weight in the heels of your hands. Same thing with downward facing dog. So lastly, let me fold it back up. If you are taking a folded over pigeon with your shin behind your wrists, we tell people, make sure you balance weight evenly into your hips. But you'll see folks kind of naturally tend to throw all their weight into the hip that's closest to the ground. This is going to naturally balance you out and take this pose to the next level. It's gonna set it up properly. So you can, again, ease into it. And then we come on up. Blanket towel is great. Now, we've showed you ways you can use it in place of your block, say that hero's pose, but blocks are inexpensive, and even though they might not be the best material, they'll probably last you forever. My kids have been chewing on this one for a while and it's still perfectly good. So blocks are amazing for deepening, strengthening poses. One very simple example is in a forward fold. We like our soft knees. You can certainly grab and hang out, let your arms hang, but sometimes having something a little supportive to rest on might inspire you to release. And honestly, the way we get further in most of our poses isn't by forcing, isn't by going to what we think it should be, but by training our bodies and our nervous system to relax into it. Our nervous systems are designed to resist stretch, right? They think it's unsafe. They think they're protecting us. We have to relax our bodies and say, hey, nervous system, we're okay here. We can deepen, we can let go. I'm not gonna get hurt. I'm safely coming to my edge. So there's what a block might look like here. Same thing for when you're exploring balance poses. Warrior 3 with our leg back. There is nothing wrong with bringing your arms down, finding the length in the spine, the strength in your back, the lift in your leg. Over time, the hands will come up. But better to learn this pose on a block and to sort of build up that foundation of security than to be wobbling here, not using it, thinking it's a crutch, because you're probably just not going to build up the strength. You'll see people use it in a triangle pose, under the hand reaching up. Again, we're not using our cores any less because we're on our prop, but it probably will inspire us to open up our shoulders a little more deeply, to get that wonderful stretch across the chest. Great use of the prop. Another one. And come on down. I'm going to take some deep back bends. Say our camel pose, Ustrasana. A block between the heels, something to rest our hands on, can help us lay a stronger foundation. When we're, forcing, going right back to our ankles, our hips might be deep tracking back to make this pose, to accommodate this pose, but we're not laying the proper foundation. We want our hips stacked over our knees. Using a prop can help you find that foundation while the spine acclimates to the posture. I would highly recommend a block, but I tell my students, if you don't have one, and you have a nice sturdy water bottle, that can work pretty well, although might not have the same level of balance. Same thing goes with a book. You have to worry about your book moving, but if it's a pretty thick book, you might be able to find some good support, stability. Again, though, I'd recommend spending the $5 on a block. Another really great piece of equipment to have is your strap. Straps are fantastic for a whole host of reasons. We talked about forward folds on our blanket towel. A strap on the bottom of the foot can help you maintain that wonderful length in your spine, so you're getting the hinge, so you're opening up your back and your legs at the same time. And it can inspire us to hold, right, rather than finding it or feeling funky in the shoulders. This is just a great tool to have. And I should mention one more thing about blanket towel. Never hurts to have two, because in a forward fold, a little cushion under the knees keeps from hyperextending. Your strap is also wonderful when it comes to opening the shoulders. You'll hear people talk about flossing, bringing their arms out, reaching them up overhead and back. Of course, you could do it sans strap, but it's pretty nice with one. There's cow face pose, where the fingers look to find each other from behind. It's a big posture. Putting a strap in your hand, bending, finding the strap can make this pose more accessible. It keeps us from rounding into it to deepen it. And it's also a really good indicator, right? If we know that we have about 3 inches of strap, we can kind of track our gains as we open up our shoulders and we start, closing the gap on that strap. We're going to be able to track our practice. Great way to open up the shoulders. Another thing, speaking of the shoulders, we can use it for binding. So not just our cow face pose, but you'll see people take binds in our extended side angle. Right hand to the lower back, left hand underneath if you're doing it here on the left side with me. But you can start to find that foundation for a bind until one day the fingers take it. And if that never happens, no big deal. Also great for accessing things like the quads. If you're taking an Anjaneyasana, opening up the hip flexor, you want to add a little quad to it. You put the strap on the bottom of your foot. Hold with as much space as you need. If you feel pressure under your knee, blanket towel underneath. Give yourself the support through props to deepen up your postures. And then, of course, we can use our straps for really wonderful releases on our legs, to hold our feet, but to not tense up our shoulders. If your strap's long enough, your arms can rest on the mat. You can get this wonderful stretch and still get inspired to release deeper into it. Blanket towel, block, strap, those are your keys. Best props you can have. Now, if you don't mind spending a little extra money, and I really think I only spent about $20 on this, but I love my bolster. Bolster is incredible, especially for the tight shoulder folks. You can nestle up bolster against the lower back, take a supported fish. It's a beautiful way to just counteract the body's natural tendency to fold forward. You could use the bolster for a really dreamy assisted bridge where you bring the hips up and place it underneath. Your block, your blanket towel will absolutely work here, but this bolster is just so luxurious. It's supportive, it's soft, it's relaxing. And then if you extend your legs, you get this wonderful stretch across the hip flexors. And you can take an assisted legs up the wall. If you're into yin, if you're into longer holds, for folks who you know, might want to practice while they're watching a movie or kicking back. You can take your bolster, rest your head. You're going to be inspired to hold a little bit longer, to just sit with the pose, very yin, very restorative style. So, your last piece of equipment, one I would recommend, but if you're only going to have 3, make it your block, strap, blanket towel. I hope that was helpful. If you ever have any questions about props, you can always drop a comment here. I'm happy to answer questions and make more videos.